So I'm going to share my screen and describe whatever I'm sharing. So the first thing I want to share is a snippet. One of the things that this week's Torah portion is notable for is that it includes the Shema and the what's known as the V'ahavta, the paragraph that's used liturgically in the morning and evening services in Jewish communal prayer. We're not going to dive into this, but I want to point out that in the Sefer Torah, in the actual Torah scroll itself, it is traditional to have two letters of the Shema written in an extra large font, kind of bolded and so that it stands out. This happens a few times elsewhere in the Torah, but and it's always notable. It's always commented on, and it always is significant. So every Torah scroll has this orthography, this writing of the Hebrew letters, which are of course hand lettered by a sofer or soferet. And in this case, the Shema, the first word of the Shema, which ends with the Hebrew letter ayin, the ayin is written large, and the last word of the Shema is echad, one, and the dalet, the last letter of echad, is written extra large. So we have the two letters ayin, dalet, which, if you put them together, create the word ed, witness, witness. So, and as a mindfulness practice, the use of the Shema is really can be really understood as a mindfulness practice. It's a practice of witnessing the oneness of the divine, witnessing the oneness of creation, witnessing the oneness of everything. That when we recite the Shema, which traditionally is done when we lie down at night and when we wake up in the morning, and of course in liturgical use as well. This is, I think my old rabbi, when I was growing up, used to say the watchword of the Jewish people, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. So just to point out that the presence of that word witness, to bear witness, that's what we do as Jews. We bear witness to what is true. I love that. Another thing we are bearing witness to is the presence of love, ahava. And so what immediately follows the Shema is the V'ahavta, which speaks of loving Yud He Vav He, loving God, loving your God with all our hearts, with all our souls, with all our strength, with all our might, and keeping that at the forefront of our awareness throughout the day, to bear witness to the oneness of God and to love that God, however you understand God, throughout the course of the day, to keep that. And of the third paragraph, the Shema, which is not drawn from this part of the Torah, includes reminders about the tzitzit, the fringes on the corners of the garments, which are meant as reminders, and of course the mezuzah, which is placed on the doorposts of rooms and houses, also a reminder, a constant reminder, mindfulness reminder, as we move from place to place over the course of the day. Oh yes, bear witness, oneness, love, oneness, love. That's the practice. We boil it down simply. So I'm going to share a few sources very briefly about what does it mean to love God, or how do we do that? How do we love God? How are we supposed to love God? Few of these are from the great medieval Jewish philosopher Maimonides, the Rambam, in his legal code. These sources, by the way, I want to thank my colleague, Rabbi Pam Wax, who identified these sources for loving God. And in one of them, Maimonides says, one of the ways to love God is by contemplating God's actions and creatures and seeing within them inestimable and boundless divine wisdom. So what can give rise to love of God is awareness of wonder in the world, wonder in nature, wonder in God's creatures, just by observing what is truly amazing about simply being alive, the way our bodies function, the way the world functions, that can evoke a sense of love for the creator or the creative process that is animating those things. Another that Maimonides offers is that one can love God as an outgrowth of the knowledge with which one knows God, whatever that means. I would suggest as a possibility that when we have moments when we feel a deep sense of spiritual connection with the universe, with the divine, however you want to define it, when we, quote, know God by feeling like we are aware of something at work in ourselves and the world, that is another way of loving God. And finally, another offering by Rabbi Judah Lowy ben Betzalel, nicknamed the Maharal, medieval, early modern rabbi of Prague, is that we can love God by loving God's creatures. Loving our creatures, meaning animals, the creatures of the world, as well as our fellow human beings. Whoever loves the one loves all the works God has made. When one loves God, it's impossible not to love God's creatures. And the opposite is true. If one hates the creatures, it's impossible to love God who created them. So that's a challenging practice, but it does give us a little bit of an indication then when we are feeling hateful towards others or hateful towards life, that is at odds with our aspiration to be in a loving state of being. And finally, a brief quote from the Musar teacher, the contemporary Musar teacher, Alan Marinus, who writes that it's easy to write about loving God, and it's hard to know what that means and how to do it. But I love what he writes here. The essence of love is seeking connection. Each of us is charged with the responsibility to cultivate this love relationship, this connection with the source of all. So when all is said and done, without getting too tied up in knots about the abstract nature of this, let's sit with that teaching, that the Shema and the embedding of the word aid, witness in it, comes to teach us, to invite us to practice being witnesses to the underlying interconnectivity of all being and of all life, to open our hearts to love this creation, to love this planet, to the best of our ability, love our fellow human beings, as challenging as that may be sometimes. Includes, of course, loving ourselves, as challenging as that can be sometimes. And so to lead us into our practice, I will share a poem by Dorothy Hunt called Undress Your Heart, which I just love. And I'm not going to share the words. You can read the words later on your own, but I will share the words of this poem with you. But let's together move into practice here as a community, again, by turning our awareness inward, away from the screen, away from any distractions, giving yourself opportunity to practice Shabbat just by letting yourself be, not by doing anything, and by having it be enough, to know that it is enough just to be, that you don't have to earn your keep, that you don't have to justify your existence, that you are perfect just as you are, that you are lovable and loved just as you are. This is shifting into Shabbat mode. Finding a position in your body, hopefully that's not slumped over, maybe rolling your shoulders back, your shoulder blades back to open the chest and the heart space and the rib cage. And bring attention to that space in your body, to your rib cage, which is with its amazing structure to protect this vital organ, the heart, which right now is pumping, contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding. And see if you can attune yourself to your own pulse of that heartbeat. See if you can notice your heart pulsing. And I'll just share these words by Dorothy Hunt, and let's sit together. Remove the bulletproof vest that's been covering your heart. Rather than protecting you, it is the cause of pain. Undress your heart. You have imprisoned love. No wonder it aches. Its longing is a message. Let love's tiny stirrings become an explosion that shatters separation. Love needs no protector. Its ocean is your body. Its sun melts frozen sorrow. Its sword cuts through delusion. Its tenderness heals wounds. Undress your heart. Let yourself fall open in your longing to what ends longing. So let's remove the bulletproof vests over our hearts. Let's let that space soften and become spacious with each breath. Noticing how the breath can expand the rib cage. It's not immobile. It moves, it expands and contracts with each breath. And as we sit, let's see if we can undress our heart and fall open in our longing for that which ends longing, that for which our heart is yearning, to love, to be loved, to be loving beings. Let's sit together. an invitation, if it isn't already there, to place one of your hands or both hands over your heart to feel that protective rib cage moving, expanding, and contracting, and seeing as you receive the inhalation, you can just soften and open your heart a little bit more. Let love's tiny stirrings become an explosion that shatters separation. Love needs no protector. Its ocean is your body. Its sun melts frozen sorrow. Its sword cuts through delusion, and its tenderness heals wounds. We can't be loving beings if we are not able to receive love ourselves. The extent to which we're able to be loving beings depends on the extent to which we are able to open ourselves to receive, to absorb, and to pass on the love that is present in the world. So for the last few minutes of our sit, as we sit, I'll invite us to listen to We Are Loved, words by Rabbi Rami Shapiro, set the music and sung by Rabbi Shir Fight. Let's sit with the song together. As we prepare to come out of our sit together, we'll offer the blessing that each of us becomes a more open vessel as a conduit for love in this world, and bear witness to the presence of the interrelatedness of all life and of the love that is generated by our actions, by our prayers, by the works of our hands and our hearts. If your eyes have been closed, I invite you to gently allow them to open. If your awareness has been directed inward, come back to the screen and to our community. We're about to create a minyan of comfort, community of support for those in mourning, and end our sit as we do by offering that opportunity for reciting the Mourner's Kaddish for those who are grieving or observing a yard site. And you can put the name or names of anyone you're honoring today in the chat box now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you are reciting Kaddish, you can join me by rising in body or in spirit and unmuting at this time. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, we hope you'll stay present and support those who are. Yit Gadal. Amen. Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to wish you all a sweet and restorative Shabbat and weekend. Wonderful to be with you this week. Looking forward to next week. Just letting you know, our teachers coming up next week on Monday, Yael Shai will be leading us. On Tuesdays, Rabbi Susan Leiter. On Wednesday, we'll be joined by Rabbi Dr. Mira Neshama Weil. Next Thursday, Dr. David Gottlieb of Spiritus Institute will be joining us to lead us, and I'll be back next Friday to lead us into Shabbat. Rebecca Schistler will be off on vacation next week, so I'm glad to be here to hold the space that Rebecca usually is leading. Thanks so much to Jordan Pollock, who debuted today, holding our tech space. 2 thumbs up. Beautiful job, Jordan. Thank you so much. And of course, as always, you're invited to stay on. I'm happy to respond to your reflections in the chat or questions that you might have about the teaching, and maybe another bonus sit for 3 or 4 minutes at the end of our 15-minute Q&A just to sit with that beautiful musical rendition of Rabbi Rami Shapiro's interpretation of Ahava Rabbah, which is the morning prayer preceding the Shema, infinite love, and in the evening the prayer is Ahavat Olam, infinite, endless love. So if you're leaving us now, again, wishing you Shabbat Shalom. Hope you have a great Shabbat, and we'll hope to see you next week for practicing together. Keep an eye on the chat, and thanks for the kind words, folks. Always very much appreciated. And blessings for condolences and comfort to those who are in mourning, and a lot of yard sites today, I see. Okay. Just going to keep an eye out for a moment for any questions there might be. And if not, be happy to reprise the song by Sheer Fight. And by the way, here's the link to it before I forget. Seems like, all right, see a question's coming in from Michael. Well, Michael's question is coming in. I will share the link to the song. Here it is. Okay, Lori, always a good question. Ayin Dalit, witnessing in full presence seems like the ultimate Hineni, showing up and holding space and love. The question is, what's the question, Lori? Okay. At what soft line do we move from witnessing to fully embracing, engaging? Oh, that's, again, as usual, a wonderful question. I guess that raises the question whether witnessing is a passive act or an act of engagement. I'd like to think that it's the latter, that it's inclusive and embracing and engaging. It's not standing at a distance or being detached from. In mindfulness practice in general, and Jewish mindfulness practice in particular, the aspiration in practice is to be, the phrase that's sometimes used is flush with our experience, flush with the world. So there's no separation. We're in the world. We're not looking at the world, but we're actually in the world. Can't remember, but there's a wonderful Mary Oliver poem to that effect. Moving through the world, walking through the woods in order to be in the woods, not to be observing the woods. So I'd like to think that the Jewish sense of witnessing, of edut, has to do with not being detached or stepping outside or moving back to observe, but to be part of and immersed in and engaged in. And I really appreciate that question because it's easy for me to think about it as the word witness. But just as witnesses in court cases, for example, are engaged, they're part of the process. And I also think about the biblical quote that's inscribed on the outside of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., which is taken, I'm pretty sure, from Isaiah. Just the words, Atem Edai, you are my witnesses. It's a quote that's Isaiah quoting God, emblazoned on the stone outside the Holocaust Museum. You are my witnesses, which can be understood, it's ambiguous. Are we witnessing on behalf of God? Are we witnessing God, or both? So thank you so much for that question, Lori. Thank you, Julie. Science tells us the act of observing a system changes the system, so witnessing is participating. Love that. And Lauren Blatt, to witness and acknowledge is to bestow respect and dignity. The poem I shared, which is in the Dropbox. Jordan, if you can put the link to the text again in the chat box, that would be great. Just share very briefly the screen, and you can see here's the poem, Undress Your Heart, by Dorothy Hunt. So it's on the it just bears reading it again, maybe with some a different kind of, seeing it through a different lens after having sat with it for a bit. Remove the bulletproof vest that's been covering your heart. Rather than protecting you, it is the cause of pain. So making ourselves more vulnerable, actually, letting down our defenses a little bit, maybe actually the way we may think we need the defenses to protect us from pain, but actually maybe the defenses themselves sometimes can cause us pain. Of course, not always. Sometimes those defenses are essential, and it's not safe to make ourselves vulnerable. So with that caveat, that's the suggestion here. undress the heart, and to give it lots of space, and to notice the longing of the heart to be expressed, of love to be expressed. I really love this line: let love's tiny stirrings become an explosion that shatters separation. That's a beautiful summation of this poem. Love needs no protector. I also love this: its ocean is your body. Our bodies are expressions, manifestations of love. Its sun melts frozen sorrow. Its sword cuts through delusion. Its tenderness heals wounds. It's beautiful, such varied metaphors: ocean, sun, sword, tenderness. Let yourself fall open in your longing to what ends longing. It's a beautiful poem about yearning. I just love that. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. I'd be happy to show those. Thank you so much for these beautiful quotes. I'll share the screen again. So if your eyes were closed, you didn't see this, but this is a photo of the Torah text, and you can see. Let's see if there we go. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know quite how to do that. Oh, there we go. Look at that. There's I just did there we go. There's the ayin. Oh, I'm learning here. There's the ayin and there's the dalet. So each time we recite the Shema, even though in the prayer book it's not written in that way, just with the enlarged ayin and dalet, we can just be aware of that. Just use that as a prompt for a bit of mindfulness practice, to remember that we're meant to be witnesses. Be witnesses. Shira writes, engaging maybe being with so fully you feel as one with the other. Witnessing may involve knowing both your own experience as well as the other's experience, which may not be identical, backing up enough to really see the other. That's really beautiful, Shira. Thank you. Oh, okay. Michael, thank you. Really important question. What can be done if pain or sorrow prevents one from feeling or rendering love? I guess I was alluding to that when throwing in that caveat about, being protective of the heart. Here, I guess I'm once again just offering my thoughts, not definitive for anybody, but that the practice involves discerning whether in fact it is safe or appropriate or helpful or useful or wholesome to lower the guard. It may be that we are numb, whether it's because of grief, pain, sorrow, like you're saying, Michael. And someone in the chat, I think, alluded to this earlier, just like being fully with where we are. And when it's possible to open, that there's a time for that as well. But there are times when that may not be accessible to us. And moments like that, I think maybe it's just a moment for loving ourselves. Okay. So in the last few minutes, I'm going to just reprise that song by Sheer Fight, and invite us to sit and to use that as just an opportunity once to go a little bit deeper into the practice of receiving love, and also noticing what might be getting in the way, what obstacles might be blocking it, whether it be shame or sense of unworthiness or sadness or depression, and to accept those obstacles as well, just to not fight them, not judge them, and not judge ourselves for having them, but to adopt as non-judgmental an attitude as we can. So, but the extent to which you can receive, even if it's just a little bit, let's sit with We Are Loved by Shir Yaakov Fight. And I'll play it. It's 3.5 minutes. And let's use this to take us out into Shabbat and just sit together with that. Wishing you all a wonderful, sweet, restorative Shabbat. May all who mourn be comforted, and may each of us open our hearts to be more open, willing, more effective agents of love in this world. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Great to be with you. Hope to see you on Monday with the El Shai. A shout out, Jordan. Thanks for holding our space, and to each of you for being here. Shabbat Shalom.